let's talk about Parshas Balak. Let's just start reading from the beginning, and we'll talk some insights in the Parsha. I have a few insights from Rabbi Friend this week, my former neighbor. And let's see. So page 856. So Vayar Balak ben Tzipor es kol asher asa Yisrael la'Amori. Balak, the son of Tzipor, saw all that the Jewish people did to the Amorites. What did the Jewish people do to the Amorites? The Jewish people had asked them if they could pass through their land, and they said no. So there was a war which ensued, and the Amorites were destroyed by the Jewish people. They were lost in war. So Balak got very nervous about this. So what did Balak decide to do? Vayagar Moab mipnei ha'am me'od ki rabhu vayakatz Moab mipnei bnei Yisrael. Moab, they were very nervous because they saw that the Jewish people were very great. And Moab was disgusted in front of the faces of Bnei Yisrael. Vayomer Moab el aziknei Midian. Moab said to the elders of Midian, and they, Ata yelach chachu hakal es kol tzvaisenu kelchoi chashor es yerek hasadeh uvalak ben Tzipor melech leMoab vayishahi. He says that the congregation will lick up all of our surroundings like an ox licks up the greenery of the field. And Balak was the king of Moab. So what did he do? So he's afraid now of the Jewish people after what they just destroyed, the Amorites. Vayishlach malachim el Bilam ben Peor v'seira asher al anar eretz bnei amo likro lo leimar hinei am yatzav mitzrayim hinei chisa es ein haaretz v'hu yoshim mimuuli. They went to Bilam, the son of Beor, who was in Pesor, which was on the river of his people. And they said to him, there's a people that is coming out of Egypt, and they're covering the land opposite me. Go and curse this people. So Balak is sending messengers to tell Bilam to go curse the Jewish people. They are more mighty than me, numerous than me. Ulai uchal nakebo v'agarshana min haaretz ki yadati eis asher tevarech mevarech v'asher ta'or. You are. Balak says to Bilam, says the messenger says to Bilam, that I know whoever you bless will be blessed, and whoever you curse will be cursed. So Balak's plan is that there is this people, the Jewish people, who just defeated the Amorites, and they're very powerful, and he's very nervous. So he tries to get this non-Jewish prophet named Bilam to go and curse the Jewish people. Yeah, he was a prophet. He was someone that was known to communicate with Hashem. Hashem communicate with him. He was not Jewish. The Rashi says the reason that Hashem gave prophecies to Bilam is that so the non-Jewish nations couldn't say that, well, you guys had Moshe. If we had someone like Moshe, then we would be just as great as the Jewish people. So Hashem said, I'm going to give you a prophet also, and we'll see how you handle it. And obviously they did not handle it very well. I think, don't quote me on this, I remember an article came out a few years ago, they found like a pedestal with the name of Bilam on it, or something, like from the times of the Chumash. Not 100% sure. You should check it out. So, Balak was from the nation of Moab. So this interesting Rabbi Friend makes an interesting insight about this nation, about the Moabites. Where did they come from? Where did the Moabites come from? So when Lot escaped from Sodom, when Hashem destroyed the city with fire and brimstone, it was just Lot and his two daughters who survived. And they thought, both of his daughters thought, that they were the only people left in the world. They thought not just Sodom was destroyed, they thought the entire world was destroyed. So they felt that it was their mission to repopulate the planet. Right, so what they did, they got their father drunk, and they both slept with him. They committed incest, and they both had children. So one of the daughters, so let's see what the Gemara in Bava Kama 38b says about this. Amr Reb Chia bar Abba, Amr Reb Yechanan. Reb Chia bar Abba says in the name of Reb Yechanan, Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu mekafech schar kol birya. Hashem does not deprive any creature of their reward. Afilu schar sichana. Even the merit of saying a small statement, a small positive statement, you get reward for. Why? The Ilu Bechira, the older daughter of Lot, Dika Amra Moav, Amr Lo Kadosh Baruch Hu L'Maisha. So the older daughter, who had relations with her father, she named her kid Moav. What does Moab mean? Moab means from my father. Literally means that. Very brazen thing to name your kid when you committed incest. Yeah. So, regarding the nation of Moab, who descended from this illicit union, the Torah says, "Al teitzer es Moab al tizgar bam b'chama." It says, don't start wars with them. Don't start a war with Moab. Milchamahu delo ha'angarya avid behu. So the Gemara makes a inference, says that you're not allowed to start a war with them, but you're allowed to make them give you stuff, make them give you money, make them give you bread and water, put levies on them, meaning you just can't start a war with them, but you could do other things that aren't so friendly. Give them a hard time. Seira, now the younger daughter, who slept with her father, what did she call her son? So she called her son Ammon, meaning Ben Ami, the son of my people. It was a much more, call it tznius, a modest name, meaning she wasn't so explicit where this union came from. Amalei Kadosh Baruch Hu Moshe. So what did Hashem say to Moshe? V'karavta mul b'nei Ammon el titzuram v'altis gar bam klal da'afilo angaria lo savid b'hu. When it comes to Ammon, you're not allowed to start a war with them, and you're not even allowed to start up with them. You're not allowed to do things which would even incite them. Because she named her son Ammon as Ben Ami, which is a more tsunua name, a more modest name, that nation, the Jewish people, have to treat better than Moab, who was very brazen in the way that the mother named the child. So the Rabbi Fran says from here, you see that two people can commit a sin. Right? It happens to be they thought they were doing a mitzvah, right? They thought the world was destroyed and we have to repopulate the species. But he says you could do something which is wrong, and there's a big difference between somebody who does something and is ashamed of it, and somebody who does something and is proud of it, right? You can have two people, they do the same avera. One person is embarrassed, right?
At that point, was it an avera already? That was before the Torah.
Right. So, but you still had the even though it was before the Torah, you had the 7 Noahide laws, which this would be included that you can't do. So they thought they made a judgment call that they thought it would be better to repopulate the earth because they thought the world was destroyed, and then it would be better to do that. But he says, you have these two people that do a sin. If someone's shameful when they do it, he's embarrassed. Versus somebody who doesn't, says, I'm loud, I'm proud, I'm going to do whatever I want, and I committed a sin, and I'm going to let everybody know. That's totally different, right? It's not. You shouldn't say like, oh, I committed a sin. I'm just as bad as somebody who committed the same sin. There's different ways to do it. When a person sins, there's a difference between the person who runs to do it versus the person who walks to do it. All of these things are taken into account. So that's the importance of shame. And they did the exact same action, which was very, very bad, obviously. Okay. Please take some cholents and soda. Okay. So let's go on. Let's look at verse 22, 28. So what happens? At first, Bilam doesn't want to go to curse the Jewish people, and Balak, the messengers convince him. Right? Hashem tells him first you can't go, and then Hashem tells Bilam you can go, but you have to do what I say. And on the way, Bilam is riding his she-donkey, as ArtScroll says, and all of a sudden, the donkey stops. And what does Bilam do? He hits his donkey. Now let's see what happens after Bilam hits his donkey. 28 says, V'yiftach Hashem es pia ason. Hashem opened the mouth of the donkey. But Ta'omer leBilam, and she said to Bilam, Ma asisi lecha? What did I do to you, ki ikisani, that you're hitting me? Zeh shalosh regam, these 3 times. The donkey starts talking. V'yomer Bilam la'ason. Bilam says to the donkey, Ki yisalalta bi, lu yishcher biyadi ki ata argticha. If I had a sword in my hand, I would have killed you. You mocked me. But Ta'omer ason, the donkey says back, El Bilam, halo anochi asoncha asher rechavta alai me'odcha ad hayom hazeh hahasken iskanti lasos lecha ko v'yomer lo. He says, aren't I your faithful donkey that you've ridden all your life? Have I ever done this to you before? And Bilam says no. So what does Bilam do? So Hashem uncovers Bilam's eyes, and he sees that there's an angel standing there blocking the donkey, and the angel starts talking to Bilam and says, why did you hit your donkey? And very scary, surreal experience. And what does Bilam do? Right? What would you think Bilam would do after this? He obviously realized, well, there's an angel, my donkey started talking to me, I'm going to go home. That's not what Bilam did. Bilam continued along the way and went to try to curse the Jewish people. Now let me ask you, if you were driving the Garden State Parkway and your car broke down, so Rabbi Fran gives us mushal, and you are very angry because you're going to be late for your appointment, so in the shoulder, you start kicking your car, and kicking it, and the car says, David, aren't I your faithful Buick who has driven you to Kollel and home and all around New Jersey and New York City for so long? Why are you kicking me? What have I done to you? And I start talking to my car, and the car talks back to me like Transformers or, was it Herbie? Something like that. At that point, if you were going to do a sin, I think most people would go home. You wouldn't continue to do the evil thing that you were planning to do. So Rabbi Friend says, what was Bilam thinking? So he says something very simple but very profound, that when a person is blinded by money or power, as Bilam was, then your donkey could start talking to you, your car could start talking to you. If you want to do something, if you want to enhance your ego, if you want to gain something, if you have an agenda, there's no stopping you, no matter what happens. You just don't care. You don't care. You could have a miracle happen in front of you. You can see an angel. If you want to do it, you're going to do it. There are people that are so blinded by their lusts and their desires that even the most obvious thing that's placed in front of them won't stop them from doing something wrong. And the similar idea is spoken out by Rav Chanan Wasserman in the end of Kovitz Aros, where he explains it's called, I think, Biuri Lagados. He talks about a lot of profound concepts in Judaism. He says, the Torah says, Ki hasheichad ye'aver einei chachamim, that bribery blinds the eyes of judges. And it says even a pruta. A pruta is the lowest currency in the Gemara. It's about 2 cents or 8 cents, something like that. Even if a judge is bribed with 2 cents, even that the Torah testifies, will cloud his judgment. And it says even Moshe and Aaron, even the 2 holiest Jews who ever lived, you give them a penny, that'll even cloud their judgment. Because any little thing will make a person biased to not judge a case favorably. So you can't even take that little bit when you are serving as a judge. And Rav Chanan says that's what the Yetzer Hara does to us. The Yetzer Hara is the sheikhah. The Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, is the bribery. He says if there was no Yetzer Hara that would be pulling people to fulfill their lustful pleasures and things like that and to do whatever they want, everyone would believe in Hashem. He says it's so obvious to believe in God, right? We all know that we were created for a purpose, with a goal in life, with a mission. And if we didn't have those things that were trying to pull us away from it, it would just be obvious to us that there is a God. But there is sheikhad, there's a Yetzer Hara, we have desires that try to take us away and try to get us to not recognize Hashem, because if Hashem doesn't exist, then I can do whatever I want. There's no one telling me that I can't drive on Shabbos. I can't eat a cheeseburger on my way home at Wendy's. Actually, I'll probably get a chicken sandwich, but whatever it is. There's nobody saying I can't do that. So that's a sheikhah. That is bribery. We have a bribery trying to get us to not recognize Hashem. He says if there wasn't for that, then it would be obvious. Everyone would recognize Hashem right away. And that's how he explains how you can have brilliant people that don't recognize Hashem, because there is that Yetzer Hara. There is the Yetzer Hara, which is the sheikhah. And it's very interesting. Once he says logically that that there's a God, and that's an obvious thing, because he points out that even a bar mitzvah bacher, right? You have one of the questions Rav Chanan asks is that how can you? One of the first mitzvah that the Rambam counts in the Torah is to believe in Hashem. He says, how can you expect to keep the mitzvos? Who's required to keep all the mitzvos? Any boy who's 13 years old, right? We have a bar mitzvah the Shabbos. He's required to keep all the mitzvahs. He's required to believe in Hashem. He says, how can you require a 13-year-old boy to believe in God when Aristotle didn't believe in God and in these great philosophers? So he says that a normal person without sheikhad, without this Yetzer Hara bribing him, trying to take him away, if you just have focused and don't let yourself be swayed by the evil inclination, it's obvious that there's a God. It's obvious that a person's life has purpose, it has meaning, and that doesn't make any sense if there's no God. Right? If there's no God, why does my life have purpose? I'm just an accident here. There's no meaning to anything I do. So there has to be Hashem. Only when a person is pulled by his Yetzer Hara, is bribed by it, so to say, that's when he rejects Hashem. And he says that once a person believes in Hashem and that there's a purpose, the next obvious thing is that means he told people what he wants from them. It wouldn't make sense that a God created the world with people having a purpose and not saying what the purpose is. So that becomes that he gave us a Torah. He gave a Torah to the Jewish people. It's very interesting that most of the world recognizes that the Torah was given to the Jewish people. Christians recognize it. Muslims believe in it. I believe Sikhs also. I'm sure other religious groups. It's like this recognized fact. And obviously we know that the Torah was given in front of the entire nation, and no other religion even claims such a thing, which is in itself is astounding. It's in the national memory of the Jewish people. No other group has such a thing. So he says that all these things are obvious. It's just like Bilam was pulled by his Yetzer Hara for power and money, and he didn't even care that there was this donkey in front of him, something so obvious. There's an angel standing in front of you, your donkey is talking to you, and you're still going to curse the Jewish people. He says, that's how strong the Yetzer Hara is, the evil inclination. We get blinded so easily, and that's why people reject Hashem, because they're blinded by their Yetzer Hara. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about some of the prophecies that Bilam said, or one of the prophecies, the last prophecy that he said, and we'll finish with that topic. So, towards the end of the parsha, so Bilam goes, as we know, to the Jewish people, and he tries to curse the Jewish people, and every time he curses the Jewish people, a blessing comes out, because even if you want to do something against somebody else, and Hashem doesn't want it to happen, it is not going to happen. So let's look on page 2421, which is on page, or 2424. Page 875, or 874. So, this prophecy, the end that Bilam said, talking about, he says he's going to tell the Jewish people what's going to happen in the end of days, meaning when Mashiach comes. And the last thing he says is that the Kenite will be, he talks about the Kenite, and he says all these things that will happen. In the end, he says, big ships from the coast of Kittim will afflict Assyria and afflict the other bank, but it too will be forever destroyed. Kittim will be forever destroyed. So what in the world is Kittim? So the Ramban says Kittim is Rome, the Roman people. Why is that significant? Because the Jewish people were exiled, had 4 different exiles in our history. The first was by the Babylonians. That's when they destroyed the first temple. Then was the Persians. That's where we had the story of Purim. Then was the Greeks, who subjugated us during the time of the Second Temple. And then was the Romans. The Romans destroyed the Second Temple. And Rome is descended from Edom, who is descended from Esav, Yaakov's brother, our cousins, so to say. Now, it's very appropriate we're reading this parsha this week, because on Sunday is the 17th of Tamuz. 17th of Tamuz we fast, because, well, one of the things that happened is that that's when the Romans surrounded the walls of the city of Jerusalem, and they destroyed, eventually on the Tisha B'Av, they destroyed the Second Temple. But on the 17th of Tammuz, they broke the walls of the city of Jerusalem. Now, there's 5 things that happened, 4 other things that also happened on the 17th of Tammuz. So one is that Moshe smashed the tablets. 2 is that the Talmud sacrifice was no longer offered in the first temple. 3 is that the walls of Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, were breached. 4, that's what we just said. And 4 was that Apostomus, who was a Greek official, burned the Torah. And 5, an idol was placed in the temple. Now, all of these things represent the disconnect between the Jewish people at the temple and Hashem. Right? This was, we sinned and we were punished during this time. Now, what's interesting, I want to talk a little bit about the significance of Rome versus the other exiles. So Rome, the Roman people, in Chazal, it's represented by a pig. The animal that's represented of Rome is a pig. Now, what is significant about the pig? So, kosher animals, we know, have 2 simonim, 2 signs. 1 is that they chew their cud, and 2 is that they have split hooves. Why? Because an animal which chews its cud is content with what he has. He doesn't have to go and attack other things. Yeah, it has split hooves. You're not going to attack and claw away at other animals. A predator doesn't chew its cud and has claws. He's not content with what he has, and he has to always destroy other things. So we don't want to eat those types of animals that will subtly influence us in any way. So we only eat animals that chew their cud and have split hooves. Now, there are 3 animals which chew their cud and don't have split hooves. Now, these animals represent beings that they're, in the inside, they're pure, but in the outside, they don't have split hooves, they're evil. They do bad things. Meaning, inside they have faith and represent someone who has faith in Hashem. Choose your cud. I'm content with what I have. I don't covet somebody else's thing, right? The opposite of being content with what you have is being jealous of others. Lo sachmo, the last of the 10 commandments, which I think we've spoken about, is the all-encompassing one of the commandments, because if one is content and trusts in Hashem, then he's not jealous of somebody else. So the animal which chews its cud represents one who is content with what he has. So there's 3 animals, the camel, the rabbit, and the hare. They chew their cud, but they don't have split hooves. So on the inside, they're content. On the inside, they believe in Hashem, they believe in God. However, their outer actions don't represent that. They have Yetzer Hara, they do sins, they do horrible things. A lot of people like that. And the inside, they mean well, but they don't do the right thing on the outside. Now, the pig is the opposite.
Jews at heart.
Jews at heart, right? They really mean well. And you know what? That's better than the next category we're going to say. The next category is the pig. The pig is the opposite. It has split hooves, but it doesn't chew its cud. Meaning on the inside it's rotten, but on the outside it acts appropriately. It acts very nice. The pig represents Rome because the Romans, they had justice, they had laws, they had a civilization, they had architecture. Everything should work out nicely, people should get along. And on the surface that looks great. That's much better than people that are going around killing each other and doing horrible things. But the inside of Rome was rotten. They didn't have any faith in Hashem. They didn't have trust in God. Everything they did was to serve themselves. Now, that's why the Romans destroyed the second temple. What was the sin that destroyed the second temple? Sinas chinam. Jews hated each other in their hearts. On the outside we were very nice, right? We did everything that we're supposed to be. But on the inside we were rotten. We were jealous of each other. We hated each other for no reason. So that's why specifically the nation, which exemplified acting appropriately on the outside, but being rotten on the inside, that's why Rome specifically destroyed the second temple. Now, it's interesting that Rome is really the progenitor of Western civilization, that where we find ourselves now, all the values of Western civilization where we live can be traced back to Rome. And that's the hardest part. That's really what we need to do tshuva for. It's a very difficult thing to get the temple rebuilt, is to work on our insides, to not be self-serving, to not only care about ourselves, to not be jealous of others, but to correct that, and that on the inside, that our inside should match our outside. And it's interesting, it says that a way to change your insides is actually by acting appropriately on the outside. Right? If you want to, learn how to daven better or go to daven more, you just get up and go, even if you don't have it on the inside. But if you have a goal to change and you start just acting that way, it'll eventually change on the inside. So this is something we can keep in mind as the 3-week start, or Shavasar Tamuz starts. And just at the end section, which I was just describing, if you are interested to read more about these concepts, I would really recommend a book by my Rashiva called The Juggler and the King. It's very, very, very deep and a lot of important ideas to the Judaism like that. So again, we see how Bilam, what he did for money and power, even the talking donkey, and an angel couldn't stop him. And we see why Rome destroyed the second temple, because of their self-serving nature and because of the sin that the Jews had of faithless hatred. And we should hopefully rectify that to rebuild the temple very, very soon.